You passed your luck check. It's
The No Class Podcast.
with your festive elf hosts, Eddie.
And Matt.
Are you feeling the Christmas spirit, Matt?
Well, we've been chuckling for the last 15 minutes. We're the jolliest couple of assholes this side of the nut house. Anyway, you'll get the reference later.
No, it's National Lampoon Christmas, right?
Yeah. He's a jolliest bunch of
Bam,
assholes.
I'm on there right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, how was
I
your...
couldn't be any more surprised if I woke up tomorrow with my head sewed to the carpet.
There you go. Same deal. So it's been a
Does
couple
your
weeks.
cat eat Jell-O? I'll give you all the lines, buddy.
There you go. But okay, who has the best lines in that? Clark or Cousin Eddie?
I gotta say, I'll go with Clark.
Yeah,
because of
he's
that
got some-
rant that he lets out.
Oh yeah, and that's what. Do you know that they say he had the notes on people's chests? So he's looking at them because they're shooting it from behind the family, and he had like placards or something they're wearing to give him tips to keep him on the rant, which I thought was a little interesting anecdote from that.
We
movie.
needed a coffin. Yeah. See, oh yeah, that's my groove right
so
there.
Is that your Christmas movie?
Probably it's that and Christmas Story, of course.
Because it's like if most people like they have their Christmas movie, and Christmas Story is mine, but that one is definitely on the Vudu, saved. I was like, thanks, Gary, as I bought it on Vudu. I have Gary's Vudu.
Well, I think they were doing the $5 favorites at Regal or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and that was one of them, and I never have a time listed, so maybe I should look again. But they had like Elf and the new Grinch, the relatively new with Jim Carrey, and some of those sort of things.
Yeah,
so
we
it was
say
like,
new, but like that's probably 10 years old by now. Isn't that hard?
But
to
when I
believe?
talk about the Grinch,
Yeah,
I'm talking about what, the 60s or 70s cartoon
I
animated
think it
one?
was 1966 when the original cartoon came out. So yeah. When I was just a twinkle in somebody's eye, but not for long.
Before E.F. Hutton was speaking.
That's right. That made me think about, I work with a lot of 20-somethings, and one day after a hard day there, and I'm the charge nurse, and I looked at everybody at the end and said, well, as we're finishing up, I said, it's Miller time, and they're just blank stares.
Wow. Has that
Blank
faded out
stares.
so much?
Yeah, blank stares. I think if I have a couple, like I have a 30 and a 40-year-old, they probably would have been like, oh yeah. But no, the 20-somethings were like blank stares. When it's time to relax, one beer stands clear. Do 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 do. You remember? Yeah. So anyway,
Because we were playing some board game the other day, I think, and there was a Miller,
uh-huh.
and it's like, it's Miller time.
Yeah.
But I would think somewhat but then again, here's another out of date reference for you is Ghostbusters. When he's like, it's Miller time in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So in a way, you would think that one would keep it going. But
Keep it alive.
how many of these 20-year-olds have even seen the Ghostbusters?
Well, and if they did, they'd go, oh yeah, that reference from Ghostbusters. But would they know what that's a reference
that
to?
reference back to you. Who knows?
Yeah. But that commercial was ubiquitous in its day, So, but yeah,
Get your shit together, young people. That's an actual laugh. That's not a soundboard.
that was a real one. So it's been a couple of weeks or more, 3 weeks. So what have you been up to? What's been going on?
Yeah, but it has been 3 weeks for the listeners.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, there was a little editing time, which
It all ended up working out.
Yeah,
And then
right.
Today is the wrong day.
True.
It shouldn't even come out today, so we'll see. We'll see what we see.
We'll see
But
what
yeah,
happens.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah. We went to see Conan the Barbarian, the 40th anniversary in theater. It was neat seeing it on the big screen because I was too young to see it on the big screen 40 years ago. So it was neat to see it in color, up on the screen, 4D with stereophonic sound.
I don't think it was.
Really? I thought it was supposed to have been 4D'd up or whatever.
I don't think so, because there was some other movie that came out maybe a year ago that we were like, oh, we should go see that. But they were talking about it was being streamed to the theater.
Was it like the absolute soul crushing monsters of heavy metal or something where it was going to be 4 bands and it was going to be streamed in via satellite or something?
I think it was an actual movie.
Oh, okay.
But it was like, no, they didn't actually send them the 4K
Like a
disc
reel.
or reel or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess
they were
it's
just
disc now.
broadcasting it over the internet to them, and it's like, that's lame.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think the picture quality for Conan was that great. It was nice to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
But just like, and I'm not the picture quality guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was that great.
No, that's why even I was like, that's why I'm kind of asking, like, wasn't it supposed to be 40? Because even I was questioning, like, well, this looks pretty good. And I mean, there was, on the actual screen itself, there was some sort of divot that they need to fix because that kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you saw that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not the movie's fault. That's the theater. But there was this one little divot and stuff like that will kind of bring me out of the immersion. But no, it was
Kind of like having that hair on your screen. It's about what it was. And you're like,
yeah, it's a little distracting, but it was great to see it on the big screen and stereophonic sound. It's cool to go with your pals. You know, we had you and me and Jen, Heather, Cody, Kirby, Gary was there.
centralize your computers.
Exactly. The other day, I got to see Cody at the computer centralization station. What an age we live in. He's actually at the headquarters, leading from the front. He was standing astride his desk atop it and gesturing wildly, going, centralize that. And he was just, and his team was rapidly centralizing, you know, everything.
I think what you probably saw was a hologram.
You're probably right.
Because why would Cody come into the place that he works?
That's crazy talk, I know. But anyway,
these are the things you can do when you're the boss.
But you know,
that's what we're doing with the next Long Con. We're not even going to show up.
Yeah, we're just going to be a hologram. We're going to be waving and smiling. You know, we'll be on the beach in the Bahamas somewhere. You know, but so Cody brought up the last podcast, and I thought, oh, how heartwarming. He's still listening, and then I go, how'd you like the story about the ribs? And he's like, huh. And I'm like, so I had to tell the story again, and he laughed uproariously. So I'm like, yeah, you'd have had that laugh if you'd paid attention. You know?
So I had a guy that works with me in the military contact me the other day, and he's coming up on his retirement now.
Oh, wow.
So he's started to get back into the RPG world, and he's like, what are you up to? And I said, well, I do a podcast now too. So he was like, sent me a message the other day, and he's like, please don't needle my wife. And I was like, what?
You brought that up in a podcast one time.
That was off of our very first original podcast.
Oh, wow.
Because you had said something like, I was needling his wife the other day, and I'm like, don't needle my wife.
Yeah.
Keep your needle
So
away.
it's hilarious. He made a reference quote from our podcast, and you were like, huh?
Yeah, but that happens.
That's been
the weird
over
thing now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I was re-listening to them because we were doing a callback on our Twitch or whatever you call it, the For Goodman Games channel. And it was funny to go back and listen to him and go, oh, crap, I forgot about that. Yeah, so it was kind of neat. Like I was hoping to do one with our buddy James Ward where we talked about the Satanic Panic, have him on there for that and kind of retouch the whole Satanic Panic thing. Because I still think there are some of these people coming into the hobby that really don't appreciate or understand what we went through in the early days of the hobby. But anyway. Otherwise, it's funny. I've been on this 7 on 6 off schedule. So originally I was going to kind of maybe mention like, oh, what a week I had at work. But now I've been off the last 6 days. I go back to work tomorrow. And man, I'm just like, I'm almost ready to go back to work. I'm like, okay, this is crazy being off this much. I don't know. I had a boss years ago. He said, I'll never let you have more than 4 days off in a row. I said, why? He said, you wouldn't come back.
Right.
Yeah. And anyway.
So anyway, the guy that's getting back into RPGs, by the way.
Sorry.
Hey Q, how you doing? He asked me, and I gave him my answer, of course, but I'll ask you yours.
Okay.
If you were trying to get into D&D with the family, what product would you recommend?
Well, if you're going to do 5th edition,
that's what I was waiting for.
They've got that starter box, which is handy for that. But you know what? The thing that our buddy David Donahue just got back in stock,
the OSE.
That wouldn't be a bad choice. And even then, our good buddy Bill Barsh has got his, BX Retro clone. It's great, and he has like the Necromancer class in it, which is kind of cool. And that one, I would start with something you can ease them in, And again, I tell you what, I think you'd argue with this, one of these Black Hack derivatives. Mm-hmm. Because again, I mean, that one's great. It's basically, how easy is that? Roll under your stat. Well, now, what do I need to do 5 minutes later? No, come on now. You're going to remember, roll under stat. Okay, it's pretty straightforward, almost everything. And it's pretty intuitive. Like, I want to lift that gate. Well, can you guess what stat you're going to roll under? Charisma. So I think that wouldn't be a bad suggestion.
He's really charming.
Yeah, there you go.
He charmed that gate up. Well, hello, bars.
Hello, Mrs. Gate.
But I said the starter set.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you to
Great
poop
minds.
on 5th edition, though.
No. And here's the thing about it is I don't want to see anybody giving any more money to WotC. So but I think used to could download that first basic rules just as a free download, which is my favorite price. You're not giving me money. So I don't know if you still can. I wouldn't put it past me if you probably can't now. But yeah, like I said, I hate seeing anybody, like I said, give money right now to WotC, Hasbro, but I gotta say the initial starter thing is a good what do you call the term? Just first
intro.
Yeah, first intro, getting your feet wet. But there's honestly getting people into the game that are absolutely new to gaming. They probably still are, and this is not shitting on 5th edition or WotC. There are products that would still be an easier, because you look at Heather, she's learned Savage Worlds, and it's funny now. But going to the con was great. She got to try 5th edition. She got to try DCC and some of its derivatives.
Which one does she like better now?
And at one point, she was just like, I think I might like that DCC because it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. And then she was like, 5th edition, she had fun because she got to play with the Hudsons, and they're a lot of fun. And there's a good game masters I remember, which I think was either Doug or Nicole, which I love those guys. And
shout out on the podcast.
But when she came back full circle at one point, she was like, I don't know. I really think I like the Savage Worlds. It's pretty straightforward as well. Your strength is a D8. You're rolling a D8. You want to beat a 4. Again, pretty, so really she didn't have anything bad to say about any of those systems, which is kind of a nice thing. And being new to gaming, it wasn't really hard for her to grasp any of them. So, I'm not going to say there's no wrong answers. It's not like you want to go, what's one of the old games that it was like hurt your brain, like Iron Crown Enterprises Rollmaster or something like, good God, no, that would not be a good introduction to gaming. But Osric, again, we basically,
King Osric.
Yeah, have him listen to what the podcast 2 or 3 back where we talked about all these different games and kind of.
Well, he's going to listen to all of them.
Yeah, but if he goes chronologically, it's going to be a while before he gets to.
Yeah, I would not. When he referenced the very first one, I was like, "Oh man, we're not the ones to start at the very beginning."
Yeah, about 7, probably started around 7 or something. We were hitting our
7
stride.
is the Satanic Panic.
7, I think, was the Satanic Panic,
and so that's the first one that I'm like, yeah, okay.
We were proud of that one. Like we were hitting our stride. We were starting to find our rhythm or whatever. So we talked about going back and redoing like a podcast 0 or something.
The new number 1, which that's what the Twitch show really is.
Yeah.
If I had the rights to that, I have no idea how that works.
Yeah.
Speaking of Carnage in the Casino updates, that's going to be included in a humble bundle coming from Goodman Games pretty soon.
That's awesome.
So I'm looking forward to that. So for the 2 of you that may not have gotten it yet, now it'll be included in a package of other goodness, and you can get all of it.
Now, is that going to be a physical or a digital?
Digital.
So you've got a good digital print-on-demand version of...
Good enough.
All right. Okay. Good deal.
Apparently. Yeah, he said, send me the PDF. I sent him the PDF. It's the same one that the people that did the Kickstarter got.
Okay.
And for Durthan, good enough.
Yeah. There you go.
Good enough. All right. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let you know, and hopefully that'll put some more sweet loot in my pocket.
There you go.
And of course, we're working on Monster Crawl.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that, our little playthrough in a few.
Yeah.
But first, we get to our pop culture, unless you got something else you want to talk about.
Nope. And this is, I think, the first that we're just skating right past Long Con.
We're still under contract. It's all looking good. So now we haven't skated past it.
There's biscuits and gravy. What's a gravy train with biscuit wheels?
Well, actually, the next episode hopefully will be the best. Oh. And it'll be the best of the year and all that. So we're still looking for more topics to try and flesh this out. That's why you're getting this little short podcast.
Yeah. Give us some input, folks. Which, thank you, Lou. You did give us some input. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lou's the best.
Okay, comic books.
Okay, books and comic books. Excellent. So I haven't read any comics. I'm sure you have. I know. But just a note that some of you already know this, but for who didn't, the cult classic D&D cartoon of 1983-84 will continue next year with Dungeons & Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures, a 4-issue miniseries published by IDW as a comic book. You have a scowl on your face. You hadn't heard about this.
Had you heard there's going to be a cartoon D&D Little Golden Book.
Wow.
So that's what I figured you were about to say.
No.
And I'm like, I didn't even hear about the comic book.
And
So I didn't hear about the comic book, but I heard of the Little Golden Book.
And I didn't hear about the Little Golden Book.
you
So,
go.
wow. And then that's under books and comic books, so we're still good.
Yeah, I'd hate for somebody to crack down on us.
Yeah, I know. Too funny.
So 4 issues of the cartoon and comic form.
Yeah, the Dungeons and Dragons Saturday Morning Adventures, a 4-issue mini-series published by IDW. So, which I want to think they just did something cool recently, IDW. So, anyway.
They did a bunch of the Transformers, and they just lost the license. Hasbro took it back.
Okay, go
Those
figure.
dirty bastards at Hasbro.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to pooping on Hasbro some more, but I'll throw in right now before I forget it that because they also do Transformers toys, people are going out of their minds because the prices on that have been going up so much. So they're pissing off everybody.
You got to remember, I'm one to, we've got friends that are, anyway, but, I'm quick to go, all right, capitalism's not bad. But then it's when these companies are just outright egregiously greedy, I'm right there with you that F those guys. I mean, that's not cool. It's not cool. It's like your business, make a profit. There's a profit, and then there's just pooping on your customer base and just being greedy. And then sometimes it's obvious, But anyway, yeah.
Okay, any more books and comic books for you?
It's off to you, sir.
Okay. So this is one of the ones where it's like, I've never really been into this that much. And then it's like, but then again, I have seen all the shows and read all the comics and collected all the toys and got the t-shirt. And one thing I never read before, though, was the original run Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh.
Do you know anything about that?
Weren't they originally done by the guy that owns Heavy Metal now?
Probably.
Yeah.
But it was Eastman and Lard.
Yeah, so
Is Lard the one that owns Heavy Metal now, or is it Eastman?
I think it's Eastman. I think for a while there he was married to like that Julie Strain, the Scream Queen kind of actress who sadly died of like cancer or something a few years back. But at one point he was married to her, and then he owns Heavy Metal, and so the guy's had an interesting life. I mean, he came up with he helped Yeah, so I think it's Eastman. But if I'm wrong, by all means, let us know. But I'm just spitballing here.
But the original black and white is quite a bit different. It's more gritty.
I was waiting to hear that. Yeah.
So it's really good too, though.
Yeah.
So like at issue 7 or something, they've just returned from their first space arc.
Wow.
But yeah, really a lot better. And I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I like the old cheesy 99 2000 show, whatever it was.
Well, because that's something different from your youth, Yeah, because but no, I mean, I love it.
But I'm used to the goofy ones.
Yeah, they had to tone it down for Saturday morning cartoons.
People are getting killed in the comics,
or like the movies that they did that were more again toned down for a more youthful.
But it's not so like.
It's not just.
It's edgy. It's edgelord stuff.
No,
it's more
but it's gritty.
Along with. Because they were kind of inspired by Daredevil. And you remember Daredevil's origin story where he saves his dad out of the way and gets splashed with a ooze.
And hit by the truck or whatever.
So in this one, they don't get hit, but the turtles get hit with the mutagen stuff. So it's almost tied in with that Daredevil.
Interesting.
So anyway, it's definitely inspired by that and really pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell. Yeah.
So if there was anywhere to read comics online for free, I highly recommend it to you.
There you go. Or maybe if that person can find them and is willing to pay for it.
I'm sure you can get like the trade paperback or something. Like, don't go hunting down the original first edition, first print.
That
for
would
$900.
Yeah, bankrupt you or something. But I'll say this: I caught myself reading a lot of indie stuff from that time period or after that, and I loved it because I was working in the early '90s. Which is after this, but not long after, I seem to think. But I worked in a comic store, and they had boxes and boxes of old back issues of all kind of different stuff, and I can remember, late nights at the store pouring over some of these comics and really enjoying some of the indie stuff that was really different. Now, stuff you're not going to see at Marvel or DC that I loved, and so no, that's cool. So thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, and to tie that back into role playing, if I remember this correctly, what's Palladium's Rifts?
Yeah, there was a role-playing game,
which I think that came out before all the cartoons and the big line of stuff.
Yeah, no, it did.
That was one of the earliest things to come out was the role-playing thing because the guy thought the name was that hilarious. He's like, this is so funny. A Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, a Ninja Turtle, ha ha ha.
Yeah, and then they happen to be teenagers, you know. Yeah, but I remember I've held that game in my hand before, absolutely, at a game store way back. That was like at Excalibur when it used to be on Mansfield Road in Shreveport. Which
so you think it's going to be a total joke thing, but it holds up pretty good. It's a good read. And I think that was like 88, 84, somewhere in, I mean, it's an 80s comic.
Yeah. Well, I remember.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, what was it, the late 80s, early 90s when they had the cartoon, right?
I think, I want to say 99 or...
Oh, it was late 90s. Wow.
89, somewhere in there.
Okay. That's a little bit of a gap, but yeah, it's all good. But no, those weren't even bad, really, at the end of the day, you know, even though they were made for a more youthful audience. Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to TV.
TV.
Did you watch any TV shows?
So, a little funny thing. Because a couple nights where Heather, you know, went home or whatever, spend time with her kids, whatever. I decided to dust off Rick and Morty season 4. Not this current season, I think it's 5, but the last season.
Okay, refresh me on some things that happened in 4.
That's the funny part. You're going to get there. We're heading that way.
Is that Captain Planet, or is that 5?
Planetina, I think, is 4. But don't quote me on that.
So you're talking about 4, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So you're watching 4.
Yeah, so I'm watching season 4.
Captain Planet's part of that. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the sad fact was, I was like, I haven't watched these because on the podcast you really pooped on season 4, and I thought, let me go watch it. As I'm watching them, it dawned on me, I had seen every one of these. Mm-hmm. So what the takeaway from this is, these were so awful and so forgettable. I had forgot I had watched them until as I'm watching them, it jarred my memory that I'm like, oh no, I've seen this one. Oh, I've seen this one. Oh wait, apparently I'd seen the whole season, but it was that unremarkable. I didn't even remember seeing them until I was rewatching them. And I tell you, like the one with the dragons that I thought the concept would be really cool, that was the worst. Yes. That was awful. I mean, I want that time back. You know, I mean,
which I liked Captain Planet Planetina. I liked that one.
That one I liked.
Dragons. Oh, that one
was awful. But I mean, overall, it's really a shame if you go back and look at the earlier seasons, how great that was. And when they finally greenlit them to quit doing this thing where we're going to make you wait 3 years and hope and plead for another season of Rick and Morty, they finally went, you know what? Here, 70 episodes, make it happen. And I think they were like, oh, I guess we can start phoning it in. Or he's so busy doing
all the other myriad things.
Yeah, the solar opposites and da-da-da-da-da. And Dan Harmon has his finger in a lot of different pies that I don't know what happened. But and anybody who's like, season 4 is my favorite. Well, so sorry, but man, woof.
A lot of it you can't go back and write season 1 again, just like bands can't go back and record their debut album again. They can't write those songs after they get so far away. Like you couldn't get Metallica to write Kill 'Em All or things in that genre, in that vein anymore that sound just like it.
When you go back and look at like the original 3 Star Wars movies, how awesome those were. And then you look at like the next 3 that Lucas did would have been so much time. George Lucas wasn't the same George Lucas he was when he wrote those. And so that's why you look at some of these authors that take so long to finish that book. I think even they know, well, my headspace isn't where I was when I wrote those first 3 books or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. So to give them a little bit of an out. Yeah.
It happens, but there's been some doo-doo-y episodes, but for some bizarre reason, I picked up and started watching, I can't remember if it's season 2 or 3, the one with Szechuan sauce, Morty.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it. I've been watching that season, and I was like, man, this show did used to be pretty good.
Yeah.
It was like, was it just at the time in the zeitgeist and that was funny at the time and it's not funny now? Or it's still funny. The old episodes still hold up.
Yeah. So it's not that like we've moved on and you're going back like, oh, this is passe or whatever. No, I mean, those first 2-3 seasons are great. But, and I don't think I've watched season 5, but again, it might be a case I start watching them and go, oh wait, yeah. Because the season 5 is on with the turkey thing, isn't it?
Ugh.
Yeah. And see, that was awful, but I don't know. And then otherwise I got Heather when I was like, okay, we can watch whatever you want. She's like, I don't care. I said, all right, you said you don't care. And we started watching Harmon Quest and I couldn't really tell if she was enjoying it, but we got to a certain point. I said, you know what, why don't we call it a night? And then she goes, no. I want to see what happens to the goblins. I was like, yes. So I'm assuming she's enjoying them. I mean, So we've watched pretty far into season 1, and I caught myself laughing my ass off at those, and I forgot how much I enjoyed them. And so
which I don't know what you want to say about like Critical Role. Neither one of us are a fan.
Yeah, to each their
If
own.
you like it, yeah.
Yeah,
keep
God bless
watching.
you.
But for some reason, Harmon Quest does click with me.
Yeah, and me too. Yeah, it's just kind of funny, and it's been a good entry point for people. I've seen other people that I've told them to watch it that were kind of like on the fence about gaming, and they were like, "Oh, that it kind of like removes the intimidation factor," because these people are well-paid stars like Harmon and
But they're not
Jeffrey
voice
Davis.
actors, and they're not so serious. So yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, they make goofy mistakes. Like at one point, I laugh. Aaron McGathy, who used to be married to Dan Harmon, is one of the players on there. And at one point, they go, "Oh man, the third stone that the bad guy's after is the necklace you've been wearing the whole time." And they're like, "We don't need to let him know that you have." About that time, Aaron McGathy goes, "You'll never have the third stone." And they all look at her like, "You dumbass." And she goes, "Oops." She's like, "Well, I am a barbarian, So, I mean, it goes to show
As
you.
long as you're not an evil paladin.
Yeah. So it's too funny.
Evil paladin.
But anyway, okay, that was my TV.
Okay, so our good friend, Paint Master Extraordinaire Ron,
Rad Ron.
said, "Why don't you check out the Netflix show Wednesday?"
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are raving about it
Yeah.
online.
So of course, here I am to take a shit all over it.
Sorry for your eardrums, folks.
Here I come.
The Poop Master General.
Now, I'll ask you, how do you feel about the Addams Family in general, Matt?
I don't have like a romance for them, but I remember watching the show as a kid when I was a latchkey kid. We'll see different age. There's a few years between us. But I remember being a latchkey kid and coming home and they were on WTBS like in the afternoon and watching the old original ones. And I liked them. I mean, they were goofy. They were quirky. I enjoyed it. Now, as far as the movies, I didn't go to see them at the theater. I've seen dribs and drabs because like I walk into a patient's room and it's halfway through they did one or two with Raul Julia and, what's her name or whatever, Angelica Houston. And those were enjoyable to a certain degree, but I wasn't crazy about them. And I'll say that.
So I don't know if I've ever watched an episode of the show.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well,
Kind of, sort of.
Kinda.
With all the like TV Land and stuff like that. Like I can say I've probably seen the whole run of Andy Griffith Show.
Multiple times, I'll bet.
Maybe not the whole run.
Yeah. But I mean, just living your life. You've like, you've seen the one where the Scottishman wooed Aunt B, where you're like, yep, I remember that one, anyway.
So things of older quality and stuff like that, somehow, but Addams Family didn't transfer over. The movies, on the other hand, love the movies.
Yeah.
That's entwined into our lives from basically around the time me and my wife were dating and all that kind of stuff. And so I do have a strong affinity for the movies.
Cool.
So that's one of those things like, oh, well, you love the old Transformers. So when the new Michael Bay ones come out, you're like, bah! Oh, I'm an old man screaming at the... Yeah. So, yeah, there's some of that. But let's see. Catherine Zeta-Jones is Morticia. Not a fan of that.
Really?
On paper, it works. But... and I got to say, for the record, I've only watched one episode out of the, 4 to 8 that there are. I think there's like 8.
Wow.
8 1-hour episodes.
Oof.
I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm going to get through this one, and if I'm like, I love it, I'll watch the rest. But if I don't, I'm freaking done.
In this sense, it was normal. This guy is a completionist, but yeah.
That one I was like, nope, I'm going to be ready to jump off. I am prepared. And then Luis Guzman is freaking Gomez. He's such a... If he's cast in the right movie, he's fantastic. Like, what is it, Waiting?
Yeah. Oh, he was great in that with the goat brain and all that. Yeah. But the thing about what's interesting is like some people have said, tried to, of course, if you don't like something, racism or whatever. And I will say, I remember seeing the actual... The name of the film being Addams. It's not that their name should probably be Addams because, as you see, they look kind of Latino or something, but the actual dude that did the original cartoons that the show is based off of, his name was like Ansel Adams, I believe. And so that's where they were the Addams Family, because Ansel Adams, the artist or whatever, originally created them for these cartoons or something. You give me this look like, how do I know all this stuff?
I don't think Ansel Adams did the
okay, maybe it wasn't
Family.
Ansel.
I think he's the one that does all this art on these calendars and such.
Maybe, but still, the guy's name was Adams. It seems like the artist or whatever. Maybe his name wasn't Ansel. I don't know. That jarred in. But anyway, the thing about it was the original artwork Actually, what's his, not Morticia, but the main character, the dad. We just talked about him.
Gomez,
yeah. I mean, his name's Gomez, and he's this kind of round-headed, husky, kind of goofy-looking dude. Truth be known, yeah, back in the day for TV, they put the guy that was married to Doris
Day. Why do you do this to yourself?
Yeah, but I know, because I know these names, but it eludes me. An hour later, it'll come to me. But anyway, but yeah, so I mean, truth be known, this is more true to the original artwork. But after having seen Raul Julia, whose name I remembered, and the guy from back in the day, who is the father of Samwise Gamgee or whatever in real life. Yeah, we're used to seeing those guys. So that's where your headspace is. But I mean, I'll say Guzman looks like what the original artwork looked more like.
But he's such a slime ball. He plays such a good slime ball.
True.
Whereas Raul Julia was smooth.
Yeah.
He was a smooth Gomez. And it might be like, oh, that's a lot more like the original comic strip, or it's a lot more like the original show. But coming from the movies, I'm like, ugh. Ugh.
In the show, Gomez, the guy who played him, was kind of upbeat and likable, and he adores his wife, and Candida, he'd kiss up and down her arm and all that kind of crap or whatever. But then again, that's shtick that probably was, a one-panel cartoon. That's just something they extrapolated. So, I mean, whatever.
Well, it's kind of like having Steve Buscemi with Charlize Theron or something, where you're like,
yeah, no,
it's just, ew.
Yeah.
He's so repellent, and he can give off that like used car salesman sort of like
kind of creepy vibe. Yeah. But I think that was supposed to be part of, I think the original Addams Family was that, Morticia, even though, well, in the actual drawing, she looked kind of gaunt and drawn, but still way cute to be with such a, but then look at Pugsley and Wednesday, I mean.
So anyway.
Anywho, you're not a fan after one episode.
Because it is the story about Wednesday and her going to a new boarding school because she's got into a fight with her family. And it's like, would they? Is that what they would do if they got into a fight? And it might be like, well, in episode 5, they resolved that by saying it wasn't actually. They had to send her there because X, Y, Z. Yeah. I don't care. I don't want to get that invested in it. And it is very much one of those young adult shows. It looks like something you could see on the CW. Like, will she start dating this one guy? What's the mystery out in the woods? I don't care. I don't care. So if you like it, great. I only watched one episode, so my review is not by any means comprehensive. I'm just telling you, it's not for me.
So
Murder.
So Charles Addams was the artist, not Ansel. Yeah, Charles Addams, and it was John Astin who played the original Gomez. Oh yeah, but anyway, just putting that out there. Yeah.
And then while I was on Netflix, I also watched Pepsi, Where's My Jet? Have you heard that one?
I think it started to auto load one time.
So I guess it was in the 90s that they did the Pepsi points.
Yeah.
And they had a commercial, and it's like leather jacket, 500 points, shades, 150 points. And then at the very end, the kid arrives at school with his Harrier jet, and they're like, Harrier jet, 7 million Pepsi points. So a guy is like, okay, I'm going to get 7 million Pepsi points and get that Harrier jet.
Okay.
So this is the story of what happens. And apparently it takes 4 one-hour episodes to do that.
Wow.
Which was way too much. It's an interesting story, but I say somebody on YouTube's probably done a video of it, or go read the Wikipedia article.
This could have been a 1.5 hour,
Because when it's 4 episodes, you're like, oh, there's got to be some twist or turn in here. There's not.
No.
It was just so much padding.
But this is the hallmark of Netflix that you've complained about before, where like the first season of Stranger Things, it was great. I think your only real complaint, and was a valid complaint, was it did need to be 6 episodes. But it seems like you can't bring something to Netflix with them going, well, we can really juice this for 5 and 6 episodes, right? I mean, that would have been better like in 3 episodes, say.
All right. Got any movies?
Yes. And so I don't remember where I saw it, but there was, there was a movie called Satanic Panic who has the Geek Preacher in it. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he's a guy in the gaming sphere that he originally grew up in like Louisiana in the Satanic Panic, and he kind of talks about what he's went through, but he's like a Methodist preacher, and he goes to like Yeah, I think Gary Con definitely. I think he goes to Gen Con or whatever. Definitely Gen Con. I think I'm getting a little turnaround. But yeah, anyway, they did this movie. You can watch it free on like Tubi or something, with a few commercials. But it wasn't bad commercial wise. I enjoyed it, and it was interesting. One of the funny little takeaways. At one point, he's talking to Rasmussen, the guy who did Top Secret, and he was talking about how these religious conservatives went after D&D, but yet they had no problem with Top Secret. And Top Secret has terrorists, and you know, it has some concepts that probably kids shouldn't be messing with either. But I love that they had no problem with Top Secret. It's D&D and it's satanic. But I'll recommend that one. It was worth the time, and I enjoyed it.
So does the preacher go and rail against the evils of D&D, or he's
no?
Like, cool.
The guy. So when they first put the camera on him, he takes a big hit off his vape and shows off his Green Lantern tattoo and his D&D, tattoo or something, and he starts, and he basically points out that it's the whole thing that D&D was supposed to be satanic was religious. I mean, was ridiculous, and they kind of expose where this came from and how it came about. You know what I mean? Where it was just. It was the time and the era. And well, that's like, I remember watching Jimmy Swaggart one time, and he was like railing on video games. If it's something that young people are doing, it's got to be inherently evil, right? I mean, that was kind of the time and how that kind of played out. And I won't belabor it because, of course, you can go listen to episode 7 of this, and we talk about the Satanic Panic. But anyway, I enjoyed it. It was a movie. That's me for movies.
Oh, okay. Well, you almost perfectly put us into video games. You got any video games?
And no, except for I wanted to point out something that if you're aware of, Diablo 4 is coming out. The collector's edition is a scam. It does not include the game.
A lot of them are doing that now.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah. Collector's editions do not include a physical copy of the game.
That's just that just seems messed
stupid.
Up. Yeah. I don't understand, because I mean, historically they always did, and you paid a lot more, but you're like, oh, look what all I'm getting, including the game. So anyway, you're aware of that. Just so y'all know, I didn't want anybody out there to buy Diablo 4 and then go, the collector's edition, where's my game? There is a remake of New Vegas being done in the Fallout 4 engine by players. It's not done by a company. And I've looked at some images and like a trailer kind of. It looks gorgeous. So if you're like me, I'm over here going, dude, I want some more Fallout. It's New Vegas in Fallout 4. So that'll be neat. But it's only going to be available for PC. So FYI.
Okay.
All right.
So what I have played, my buddy Rock, the creator of that fine game Ravens, turned me on to Project Zomboid, which is a post-apocalyptic game where you're trying to survive with all the zombies around you.
Zombie apocalypse.
So it's pretty detailed. And the old, like, I know you don't want to have to track, how many cans of food you have and XYZ. And that made me think it's like, that works a lot better on a computer where you don't have to try and keep up with it and go, did you get your 6 gallons of water today? Did you go find 6 gallons of water? And where it's like, ugh. Yeah. So I'm actually fine with it in the video game where it can do the work for you. And it's a pretty cool game. And you were going to die a lot. But you can continue like it's a roguelite. So that character is dead, but you can spawn another character into that world and they can go about their business. Mm-hmm. And what I've turned it into is basically like this character can get X amount of stuff done, and this is the primary house. And then when the next character spawns in, they head to that house where it's like, oh, somebody's already put up 10 years worth of canned goods for me. Let me go collect 10 years worth of water. Okay, now I've done that. Oh, and you died out on the run. So I'll have this character come back in there, and that kind of took some of the fun out of it. The challenge.
Interesting.
When you could do that. And I could just be starting new games all the time.
Oh, okay.
But that had an interesting thing to it there. It's a pretty good game. It costs like $20.
How long
I've got my
been
value out of it. I don't think it's been out that long. I think as in like actually released, but I think it's been beta for a while.
Okay. Because I almost want to swear in the back of my brain, like James King telling me about this game.
But it's not like Rust or DayZ or any of that.
Those have been out for,
Because those have been, but where those are, what did you say? They're ongoing where it's like, oh, if you log out of the server, somebody can come raid your stuff. Mm-hmm. This one's not like that. This one you can do multiplayer.
Oh, cool.
So we might want to check that out.
Yeah.
I played it a little bit with Rock and Busby. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting, and that might add something new. And definitely check it out. You learn skills by finding books and reading them.
Cool.
So it's a really interesting game. It's just like, okay, after the first 100 hours,
does it hold up?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, after you've gotten that much value out of $20, right?
Yeah, and honestly, anything you can play multiplayer, that's always kind of cool because that can add, when the game's starting to get a little stale, oh, there's someone else, and I can show them the ropes. That's kind of fun.
Yep. So recommend it to you.
Yeah.
Now, RPG update.
Dun dun dun.
I don't think we talked about our monster crawl on here, did we?
Not yet. You alluded to it earlier.
Okay. Well, it's like, did we do a podcast between then and now?
I don't think we did.
So
Wait a minute.
We got to check out the new class, the Hag, which
Mm-hmm.
Kirby played for us.
Yeah, and some really great input, it seemed like.
Yeah. So I think everybody had a really good time.
I did.
And I would like to play that one again. I'd like to get those characters and carry on and see where it goes. It was some interesting stuff.
Yeah, we leveled, so that was kind of cool.
There was some lobster traps getting pooped in. I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny was I didn't have any problem playing the imp, but I'm that guy, and we've talked about that. Like
You're impish.
whenever you show up to a table and like everyone's already picked all this other stuff, it's like, was anyone playing a healer? No, all right, I'll play the healer. And I was like, what's the healer? And like, oh, that's the imp. And I'm like, really? Which kind of intrigued me. And I didn't mind playing the healer. I was effective and that was fun. But I wanted to try something different this time, so I did the goblins, and the goblins were fun. You know, I definitely tried to lean into the whole being a little more mischievous. And I know you're supposed to be, essentially you're playing the bad guys, right? I mean, when you're playing the monsters, but I try to play them a little more mischievous than just downright diabolical. You know, the imp, I was diabolical, but I thought they should be the most diabolical. You know,
But I like in this one that you guys have set up a scapegoat for all your mischief, and he's going to get blamed.
Yeah,
And we'll see how that goes over. That's very interesting to me. It's got an interesting angle.
Well, yeah, and I will say that's one of those things that was different about this. Normally, when you're playing as characters, and that's what I've seen in recent years. Like back in the day, it'd be like you did a sandbox. Like, all right, guys, here's your character. Here's where you're at. What do you want to do? And we would go, oh, I want to do this. I have these goals. I have these ideas. And I don't want to poop on newer players, but a lot of times, if you try to do a sandbox now, they're like, well, hey, I don't know, you need to kind of lead them by the nose a little bit, or kind of drop crumbs, or I call it throwing out threads to pull, or whatever. But it was fun where it's like we got kind of a vague mission from our evil overlord or whatever. But after that, we decided on our own, like how we're going to accomplish it and what we wanted to do. And it was fun that we were kind of like, all right, what do we want our mission to be tonight based off that very vague, you know, order that we've been given. So that was fun. I enjoyed that aspect of it as well, of like,
The sandbox. Some people love a sandbox, and some people hate them.
it. Yeah, and I love a sandbox. So
The thing that I'm doing with it right now is I'll start you in a sandbox and let you do your first night, and then the second night, if you need it, I'll give you an actual go get 3 red feathers and bring them back.
Yeah.
But you guys didn't need it. So.
No, and I like we kind of achieved our goals sometimes through comical, you know.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of laughs.
Yeah, and not just for the sake of being slapstick, just the way things played out. But I mean, no, overall, both times I played it, I had fun. I feel like everyone's had fun. So that's why we do this. You know, we play these games, and I like the classes. The Hag was a brilliant addition. So yeah. So anyway, there's that.
Okay. So as we're trying to zip through and make this a little bit shorter of an episode, I think we have maybe 2 mini topics for you.
Yeah.
So the first one is, if you have not heard this shareholders meeting from Hasbro, where they were talking about how the players are not being fully monetized yet. So prepare to get fully monetized. Did you have something you wanted to add in on that?
Just to gloat a little bit, that if you'll go back and listen to, 2, 3, things ago, when like months ago, where we talked about the stuff, and I know I sounded like some sort of conspiracy theory kook, and guess what? We were right on every count that
Pick up that phone. We called it.
Yeah, we did. I mean, so anyway, we were right. Ha ha. But I'm sad to say we were right, but that's what I'm saying. I hate to give WotC Hasbro any more of my money, and I don't intend to, and you live your life the way you want. And by all means, like Eddie said, you can have 5th edition, play it any way you want. Once you bought it, purchase it yours. But I'd say if you can find it aftermarket, buy it from someone else. Don't buy it from WotC. You know what I mean?
And really get away from stuff that has shareholders to appease.
Exactly.
This is D&D has gotten too big for our good, for its good.
Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to and it hurts my heart that just there are people that are just, when I was coming up, if someone, hey, I want to run some game. I don't care if it was supers or something weird or different. I go, yeah, we'll give it a try. The hardest part's going to be on the game master. If you understand the game, if you're not Joe, that time was going to run y'all in victorious and had apparently not at all read the rules, like that's going to blow up in your face. But I mean, if they've read the rules and understand them, the hard part's on them. Player, it's easy. Try something new or different. But there's people that are like, and just, I feel sad for them. They're like mortified to try something new or different. And it's like, good night, branch out. I don't know.
Good night. What was the second topic?
Well, so it's funny. I've in the past, I had watched these videos on YouTube from a guy. His channel's like Questing Beast. And a funny little aside is,
I heard a good song about that.
Yeah, he was in my game at North Texas. And I didn't even know until Tucker pulled me aside and goes, dude, you know who's in your game? And I'm like, no. And he's like, it's so-and-so, the Questing Beast. And I went, oh, wow. And so, yeah. And I could be completely wrong. I hope I am. I don't think he had a super great time in my game. What? But I laugh how I think some people just go, oh, he's one of the special guests. I'll get in his game. It's just going to be magical. You need to read what the game is about. My tournament games, if you're looking for some rich role-playing experience, no, it's a tournament game. They're gonzo. Everyone's laughing. And the people that knew me and knew how I run a tournament game, they had a blast. We were standing in chairs and playfully shouting each other down and throwing out crazy ideas and gonzo having
Which
fun.
they'd probably been happier because I think I was running Lamentations at the same time you were doing that, right?
Yeah, like over a few
Which
feet
is
away
a
or
quiet, old school, nothing happens, you die.
Yeah.
So then I had some people that were like, where's the gonzo off the wall stuff? And it's like, this ain't that game.
You point across the room and
we'll
go,
switch players.
Yeah. So, but anyway, he was a really nice guy, very polite. And I would love to have him in a game again, but something that's more traditional role playing or whatever. But anyway, I've been watching some of his videos lately, and he's leaned in and segued into some stuff that we've been talking about for months.
Oh, he's ripping us off.
Nah, but who knows when he did these? I haven't looked at the timestamp.
We're ripping him off.
Maybe, but we didn't know it knowing because I've just recently started listening to him. I'd seen some of his stuff years ago. Anyway, he talked about this recently. Somewhere the comment was made on some forums or something about no one wants to DM anymore, or game master. And I think we've touched on this or talked about it, but he said when he did a poll and he's like, and then tell me what game you play. And again, not to poop on 5th edition or the newer players or something, but newer people coming into the hobby, they want to play, but they don't want to run. And then the old guard, there's a plethora of people that are game masters or aren't afraid to DM, to game master, whatever you call it, to run the game. But then again, the reason why is, and we've talked about, there's people that have come into the hobby from Critical Hit or whatever, and they've seen these voice actors and this richly written campaign. And so he was talking about in his thing that these people, they're expecting you to be like this masterful.
Well, is that why they don't want to run?
Yeah, because
they think
they're intimidated because they think that they have to be like a screenwriter, director, life coach,
come get on our games and we'll disabuse you of that notion.
Exactly. And so the fact was, I can remember, and God bless her, our buddy Jessica ran for us one time back when we had ran in the for the club for like a year and a half. We thought, well, now it's our turn. We get to play. And our good buddy James Ward ran a game for us. I remember it was great. Had a lot of fun. And then she ran for us, but later on she felt like I was completely mortified. And we're like, why? You did great. We had fun. She goes, well, you guys are these master level game masters, and here I am, some just total novice, and I was just worried I'd phone it in or it wouldn't be good enough. And we were like, we had a great time. You did a great job. And she was a complete novice game mistress, but she did a great, don't be intimidated. And we weren't expecting world-class whatever or something, and and that's not directed at her, it's anybody. We're just tickled, and that's what we said since the dawn of time in gaming. I'm just tickled I see someone making the effort to run. I don't expect you to, but that's it. There is
I'm not doing it when I run a game.
Yeah,
I'm not doing Critical Role. I don't have to get the lighting and the cameras, and
you're not doing special voices for every character,
dialects.
Yeah,
this must be accurate to the country I'm trying to portray here or whatever.
Yeah. And so and that's anyway, so if you're intimidated by game mastering, dude, people are, I've never ever known anybody to go like, let's boo this guy. He did a crappy job, boo this man or whatever.
Maybe we should start that.
Maybe we should. No, but I'm just saying is, people are going to appreciate what you're trying to do. And if you do ask for some input, they'll give it to you, and it'd probably be constructive, and not terribly critical. But I mean, otherwise, any new hobby or habit, there's very few things in life that we just step into and you're a natural. It takes, but practice makes perfect. Mm-hmm. So get out there and make that effort. But what would you say?
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
There you go. But I have never, ever, ever heard
start from the beginning.
Anybody being given a hard time or being ridiculed or ran off because like, you suck as a game master. It's like people aren't. No, most people are so happy.
Well, to go back to my, as always, food analogies.
Yeah.
It's like if you cook somebody dinner at your house, most of the time they're just going to be happy that they didn't have to cook and they have something to eat instead of like, well, you used just a pinch too much dill.
Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. But would you come up with, what do you think is the rationale? Is it what old Questing Beast seemed to derive from his data or,
I don't know. That's a good question. It's probably that they're intimidated, but it might not be. I have to be critical, roll good. Yeah. I think, and this is not like kids today, but it seems like with players in general of all ages, there's more analysis paralysis and maybe more of this self-doubt in general, where it's like, I could never do that. And it's like, yeah, you could. And there was probably a point in time, maybe not for you because you started playing when you were 12, 6.
Yeah.
But when you start, there's some like, I could never run for these guys. I could never do what you do. Just not doing 100 voices. It's just like, I couldn't remember all the rules and I couldn't kind of lead the table and keep this ball rolling. But you can, and the more often you do it, the better you get, like anything.
Yeah, you look at people who ran 3.5, there was an encyclopedic number of books, and there was an obscene amount of rules. It was awful. It's one of my, I know people out there that love it. I'm so sorry, but I kind of poop on it just because as a game master and player, it was so much to keep up with rules-wise, and that's what talking about your friend wanting to ease some people into gaming. Less rules is better. And I'm not saying you couldn't work up to like, but I just love Pathfinder 1 or 3.5 or Pathfinder 2. Well, you need to work your way up to that because I'll definitely know people that when they started to get into D&D during 3.5 days or Pathfinder days, they were intimidated by the number of rules and how crunchy those rules were. So again, less rules is better,
And believe it or not, when I first started playing with Matt and his crew of experts, I didn't run. It took years before I ran a game for them.
Yeah. But Eddie does a great job, as you know. And so anyway, but that's what we've talked about. It's interesting. Like if you look at the old guard, you've got like, there's been tables that we've gamed at where it's like, you run a great game. I run a great game. Doug runs a great game.
It's like you got a table with 5 GMs.
Yeah, and how great is that? You can share duties around. No one's going to feel like they're being like. Here's the thing: is I had never heard the term "forever DM" until the last few years, and now I see why that phrase has been coined. There are people that have gotten stuck as a forever DM, and you don't think those people want a chance to play?
So how do all those GMs end up joining into a table together?
And maybe
does that happen?
Yeah. Well, there you go. You kind of
you're like, hey, you're going to rotate around, right? Yep. Yeah. It's kind of like if you'll run a game, you can be on this table.
Yeah. And it's funny. I don't know if Nicole historically had ran a bunch of games, but in the last few years, she's seen, well, everyone else is taking a turn or whatever. And Doug probably encouraged her, and she does a great job. She runs at a con and I don't know otherwise, and I heard nothing but good things about the game she ran.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I mean, and it's seeing, well, anyway, yeah. So.
All right. Yeah. So once again, we're probably talking to the wrong people, preaching to the choir. But if you haven't run a game yet,
why
get
not?
out there and run one.
Yeah.
Do a one shot. It's very easy to do. You can even do some of that Adventures League stuff.
Yeah.
Get one of those modules because it's pretty much laid out there for you, black and white. And I'll tell you, I've been doing these little introduction to D&D things up at Dragon's Nest.
Yeah, you did one
in Kilgore.
Saturday.
They're like 15 minutes long.
So last Saturday before.
Yeah. Yes.
One
of those. But they're like 15 minutes long. And you can DM one of those, and that's completely laid out for you. It's got the complete script.
And the players have ate it up from what I've heard each
Yeah,
time.
they love it. So
Yeah.
easy peasy. If you want to get your teeth wet, if you want to dip your feet in,
Hey, what you do is
whatever. Allow me to introduce myself. Allow myself to introduce myself. But just run one encounter if you want to try it.
yeah.
You don't have to come up with 2 years worth of material off the cuff. So that's my advice to you: is get out there and do it.
So as always, please give us feedback about what you might want to hear. If we do a best of, like or whatever
Some categories.
categories. As always, we're asking for you just some feedback on what we say.
Best barbecue.
Good ideas about things to talk about, etc. And also, I'd love to hear if you haven't game mastered yet. Tell us why not. It might be kind of cathartic for you to kind of dig into why haven't I. And for those of you that what kept you from doing it before you did it, maybe let us know.
Yeah, and we're trying to power through this show real quick. We almost left out the barbecue talk.
Yeah.
So for Larry and Jonathan and Wes, we were given a place because we've been giving Carter's a hard time lately. It was like, well, this place is worse than Carter's. You should give them a hard time. So we went to a particular Bodacious on the Loop here.
It's right by Harley's and the gun shop.
Yeah, I would say it was about equivalent to Carter's. Maybe a little bit better on some things. Like I'll give you 1 star for that, but I'll give you 2 stars for that, and I'd give them 2 stars, and I'd give you 1 star.
Yeah.
So we went into this one with
low expectations.
Yeah,
because
unlike Carter's, where Carter's I was like, this is probably gonna be pretty good. People
everyone
have talked
builds
it
it
up.
up. Yeah.
People had talked this one down, so it's kind of like Carter's was not as good as I expected because I expected great things. This one was not as bad as I had expected because I expected horrible things.
Yeah, so I think Wes had thrown the challenge here. And to agree with you, Wes, I'd been to this one once before and said, I won't be going back.
Better or worse than Carter's? Or equal?